I'm delighted to see you here this morning, and once again, welcome to Francis Tuttle. You remember that we are a non-smoking campus, so anyone who wants to smoke locally can. Restrooms are out the door and just across the hall from where we are right now. And I want to tell you a little bit about the program I work in. It's called Unlimited Assistance Network. So if you or anyone else you know is trying to work with the government and needs help finding opportunities, understanding solicitations, working out problems during the contract performance period, or our all favorite getting paid at the end, please have them contact one of us and we will see what we can do to help you. And with that, we're going to bring up Mr. Pringle from ODOT. Thank you so much.
Keith Trolinger.
Good morning, everybody. Is this on? Staff. Hi.
Hi.
I got a text from my wife this morning. Today is International Pirate Day, so he's putting the watch on syllabus and say R. A fish.
This is our practice.
Keith Trolinger
Right.
is our instructor today for today's class and has been in the construction industry for decades. His experiences range from a hands-on worker in the field to a project manager for multiple facilities located in multiple states. He retired after a 25-year career with the federal government, of which 4 years was in the United States Air Force. He continued his service to the country as a civil servant, performing as the heavy equipment operator, then as a concrete finisher foreman, completing his service as a medical administration program assistant. After his service, he worked as a project manager with a local contractor, overseeing operations in 11 states. He is one of the first local contracting company representatives to arrive at the Hurricane Katrina construction site in 2005, delivering water and supplies, and then promptly established a working satellite office for the company to begin the rebuild. He earned his master's degree in business administration to complete his education. In 2009, he began teaching as an adjunct instructor for the Center for Municipal Excellence, where he instructs construction industry practices to multiple municipal workers. Keith has accomplished several items as this list testifies. However, he truly believes that the key to each of them is being safe, leads to success. You see, safety is always the right choice. Please help me welcome Keith Trolinger.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll establish a couple of different things real quickly for the classroom. I am open to listening and understanding information from you. We're here to learn, okay? We're not here for me to necessarily spend a lot of time in a lecture type situation with you. I know that each and every one of you already have some degree of an education, and I want to make sure that I don't infringe in that, but I also want to let you know that the way I teach a class is a little bit different than a lot of people do. I have a lot of practices of different things that's happened through the years, and I have a lot of experiences that I've gotten involved in. And as you can see, I have no problem of coming directly in front of the group that's there, okay? I'm a distinguished Toastmaster for Toastmasters International as well, so I've got sort of a skill to speak. But my situation is, and the reason that this so intrigued me when Victoria called me and talked to me about it, is safety is the number one cost you have. Lack of safety practices, it can cost you more money in a company operation than anything else that's out there. It also causes more havoc in the whole operation than anything else that you have. We jokingly laugh when technology breaks down or it quits working and everything else, that it really stops the industry from working. But if you get a worker that gets injured on the job, it can haunt you for a long period of time. Simple step practices and habits can establish a method where that is greatly reduced. And it's so important that we understand that. Victoria has taken a great deal of her time and opportunity to provide some items here for you to review and to look at. I'm going to go through a PowerPoint presentation to give you sort of an example of the type of training that you would get for a safety program and a safety practice program, so you'd understand that. Also, there's a template that she's provided for you here on how you might put together a safety plan and a safety program, because if you're in the industry and you have a company, and especially if you're deciding to get involved in some of the government agencies' workforce and doing projects with them, you're going to have a good, solid safety program in order to do that. Now that's just to meet sort of the compliance situations, but really in that situation, if you're involved in any industry, especially heavy construction industry, going home at night understanding that your people have been safe all day is a lot better than going home at night and concerned about having to write that letter on that to that employee's family of the one that died that day. That is not a good feeling. I've had to do it on occasion through years and years of times, and you never can make it a great experience. And you feel the loss not only within the section, but within your own family. And most of you probably have your organization set up to a point where it feels like family that you're working with. And it's so important that we understand that the processes that we take at this particular time to ensure safe practices are done and performed, just simple basic safety is performed, can be so valuable to you. You know, as I was introduced, I've had 40 years in the industry. I have all my fingers, I have all my toes, okay? I don't have pieces missing or anything like that. No, I didn't sit in the office all the time. I've operated equipment, I've worked all across the United States of America, but one of the things that people who have worked with me understand is safety is first. When I come to a job site, that's the first thing I want to look at. I want to see how safe the operation is. So usually when I come to the job site, I stand away for a moment just to make sure that it is safe in that situation. And sort of watch a little bit of the processes. Because, you know, once you understand safety, you can pick out unsafe practices almost immediately. And just simply understanding that. But safety isn't something that we just, like the construction industry does, is we'll go put on the hard hat, you know, and assume, okay, I'm safe now. Yeah, I'm safe. No, it starts when you get up in the morning. There's as many accidents happen in a home a lot of times. But safety is something that you just have to be involved with. I mean, how many of us enjoy going to the doctor when we need to? Some of us don't like to go, but definitely don't like to go when we have to. And then it gets real expensive shortly thereafter, especially if you find people that are extremely hurt. It can get very, very costly real quickly. So the purpose of what we're going to try to do today is I want to try to give you an understanding of how safety can help your whole organization all the way through. Okay? Not only in practices, but how you can begin to establish a habit. Does anybody here know how to establish a habit?
Little at a time.
A little at a time. Deliberate. You establish a habit by doing the same thing for 14 days straight. If you do 14 days straight, that habit, on the 15th day, if you choose not to do it, you get a notice in your body and in your mind that says, hey, I'm doing something different today. And it will give you that indication. Well, if we can do safety under the same kind of process. Now, I've worked for the state, the federal government, I've worked for independent contractors, I've worked industry-wide in a lot of situations. And a lot of them have different concepts to safety. Some are good, and some are less. Okay? Some are, well, we'll just see what happens. I've got to go down and buy a hard hat because the guys all got to have one. Okay? So I've got to put that expense together. And as soon as I buy them a hard hat, I come out to visit the job, and the hard hats are all laying out on the ground all over the place. Then I got to replace them the next day because the guy didn't take it home with him, and now he doesn't have a hard hat, so he can't show up on the job. That's an indication to us that the person that we give the hard hat to has not established a habit. It shouldn't be necessarily your job to make sure he has the hard hat. To provide the hard hat to him initially, maybe. But to continue that process. And it's getting them to understand that hey, this is important for you today. Would you show up on that first day to do your job, if your job is to do carpentry work, without a hammer? Now then, believe me, I have seen that happen. I have seen that happen, okay? And I've seen so many things where a hammer is used in a lot of different ways. So this process is one that it's just a method, a behavior that we try to establish through that process. And that's what I want to help you today in trying to look at. We're going to look at a lot of different products, a lot of different items today, and go through some things. I promise you that every at least half hour I'll give you a break so you can get up and stretch your legs a little bit. We're going to be here only till noon. I will close things down by noontime. Now we may get into some discussions in that situation, and I have no problem with discussions. If you have questions, if you have concerns, then let me know. Just simply raise your hand and we'll sort of take those times. I've been at this process long enough that I can jump from place to place if I need to. Like I say, I teach a little bit different than a lot of people do in that situation. I see some of you are thumbing through the little booklet there and everything else trying to see where we are. You probably won't be able to find where we are, okay, in that situation. Because, see, I want your attention up here. This information is provided to you to help you and to work with you, and we're going to get into some of it here in a few minutes. But I wanted to make sure that you understand how important safety is. That safety, laws have been passed to try to protect people in that situation. But in reality, it's the foolishness that we deal with. Okay? People want to not work with it. I remember industry practice. I was working on a job a few years ago where the guys decided that they were going to make things work a little faster. And they were doing a remodel inside of a building. When they decided to do that remodel in that building, there was a lot of cutting that needed to be done. We were cutting some beams. And the one guy was slow about getting it done, and so they were going to fix that. So he took the skill saw that was there, pulled the cover up on the top of it, and shoved a stick in it, and said, okay, now I can really cut. And the guy's cutting, and he's cutting, and he's cutting. And the guy's throwing him the stuff, he's taking it and cutting it across his leg. Okay? And somebody said something to him, and he happened to look up, and when he looked up, caught his pants. Didn't cut his leg, but it was that close. Now that practice is significant for us to understand. Any time an incident can occur, but when we do something unsafely, anything could happen. I mean, it's already a dangerous process of working in construction in itself. Okay? There's so many things going on. We get so involved in what's happening that observation or just a moment of not observing can cause devastation. Yeah? While it wasn't, and I happened to come around the corner as that went on, everything else, and screamed real loud, and he shut things down. And I told him, I said, you need to leave the site for just a moment. Okay? Because I'm so angry at you right now, it's not going to be a good thing. And he says, well, angry at me, I'm just trying to get the job done. I says, I'm concerned about you getting hurt. We'll get the job done. But we've got people out there, that's what they want to do. You know, we have the old phrase, time is money type situation. Well, I agree with that, but downtime is even more money. And downtime is a result of what happens in unsafe practices. When we do things unsafely, People get hurt, job sites get shut down, equipment gets tore up, investigations, all kinds of things that has to go with that. It becomes very expensive real quickly. So while it is sometimes we can take sort of a haphazard idea or concept about safety, we don't sometimes realize how costly it can be. Sort of the indication here of what we're trying to do. We want to try to work with you and help you in that situation as far as building a safety program that's effective and works. And it's not a matter of how much paperwork you have to read. Now then, like I say, I used to work for the federal government. If it needed to be this thick, it's usually about this thick by the time they get finished with it, okay? And I retired with the federal government, and I appreciate what I got an opportunity to do there. But sometimes repetition over and over going on a piece of paper can be so mind-boggling. But really, the simple situation is keeping that direction and that focus. Now, you guys have people that work with you and people that work for you. Have you ever taken the opportunity to understand that they're paying attention to what you're focused on? Because they want to do a good job. If your focus is all about a certain situation, that's where everything's going to be focused to. All the time. That focus should be safety oriented. Okay? A good safety program starts with us. Each and every one of us. And I understand that's sometimes difficult to do because we got on our mind, man, I got to get all this stuff done. I get this gone, all this kind of stuff. But we also got to get it done safely. Now, it's that old adage, the dollar I save today is the dollar I have tomorrow. An unsafe practice can use up a lot of dollars in a real short time. Yeah. had an individual got called to the job site and they said, we need you to go get another saw and bring to them because the saw quit working. I said, the saw quit working? They said, yeah. So I was headed across town. I went by the shop, picked up the saw, come over, and when I got over to the saw is there and the cord's cut in two. I said, well, how did this happen? He says, I was busy and I was going and I was doing things. And he said I had trouble with that carriage coming up and everything else. And so I jammed the carriage up and everything else. I laid the saw down and it was still running and cut the cord. That unsafe practice could have cost some life as well. These kind of things do happen. So you have to be cautious, and you have to be able to be able to stand up and say that, hey, I'm not going to do an unsafe process. But to do that, you're going to have to recognize some of those. Let me get this program pulled up real quickly. Anybody have any questions so far? So what we would typically do with a safety course and a safety program is to talk about a variety of different items that are there. Now, I've talked a little bit about what I do and what I deal with and stuff like that. I'd like to take just a moment real quickly to have each one of you introduce yourself to me and tell me what it is that you do so that I can help you in what you're doing as well. Let's start right here.
My name's Andrew McBride. I'm the safety director for traffic and lighting systems at a corporate office right here in Oklahoma City.
Okay, good to see you.
Melissa Bramford, president of Washington Construction and Renovation. We do demolition and dirt work, so we deal with a lot of heavy equipment.
Good. Okay.
Hi, I'm Alma Pickle. I'm with the Gates Waterzone Services. We perform traffic safety and have three locations in Oklahoma, Muskogee, Catoosa, and Oklahoma City. And I am the
Okay.
My name is Melissa Turner. I'm the principal planner with Shelter Line Associates, and we we work in construction management, project management.
Okay.
I'm Judy Warren with Francis Health Technology Center and Upward Assistance Network.
I'm Victoria Armstrong. I'm a small business consultant, and I work with ODOT on the Small Enterprise Training Program.
Okay.
Charity Hagan, I'm with ODOT, and I'm Administrative Programs Officer in the Civil Rights Division.
Well, Harold, I'm with ODOT in the Civil Rights Division.
Andy Kenny, Civil Rights Division, Contract Compliance.
Michelle Whittington, ODOT Contract Compliance Officer.
Jenny Chong, ODOT's in Civil Rights Division, handles Title 6 and 7.
I'm Trina Mullins, and I work with ODOT Civil Rights Division, and I'm the ADA coordinator for the department.
Okay.
Greg Pringle, Civil Rights Division.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to meet each and every one of you. Now, this is a little different group of people than I actually perceived at first. Okay. Well, I've missed you.
I'm sorry, Gina Chauffalon, I'm principal at Chauffalon Associates in project management, construction management.
Okay. All right. So, some of you, have you worked in actually the field, in the construction field? Okay. Actually down there with the hammer and the nails and all that kind of stuff. That's important for us to understand because we grasp a lot of information there. Okay? And if you've not been in that situation, I would inject to you that it would be a good time to maybe visit a site and see some of the things that are going on there and see some of the things that happen prior to incidents that occur that show up on television. Okay? and all of these kind of things, or some of the movies in the industry. Because really, for the most part, a lot of our organizations are safe. Okay? They don't want any injury or hurt neither. But that one incident sometimes can really throw a problem. Okay? What was it, about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, out here on I-44, there was even a construction inspector that was killed on the job. Okay? And that was a situation where he got himself into a position that he ended up getting crushed in that process. There's a lot of those things that happen, and some people say, when they see it from the outside, will say, how can you be that foolish? But if you've been on a job site and seen all the activity that's going on, especially on a large job site, a simple misobservation can be very costly real quickly. And so we want to try to be able to be observant to those situations. Another situation is usually most of the people that I'm teaching in that situation are a lot of guys that's been in the industry for a long period of time, and they're pretty grumpy in the morning. You guys don't seem to be grumpy, and you're definitely different color of face and ideas. So it's a lot different process. But hey, that's great because I'm glad that you guys are getting involved in the industry. I'm glad that the industry is helping you work through these processes. Now then, what intrigued you to come to this class?
I'll tell you, we have 55 people. We are big enough. We need a safety coordinator, but almost can't afford adding that full-time position.
Mm-hmm.
And we emphasize safety on a daily basis. And it's very important what we do, but I definitely feel if Lisa came in, I would not be in compliance as far as paperwork. Definitely some practices.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we can help some of those situations and give you some indication of things to do that. Any other reason you're here?
We often find ourselves as project managers having to make sure that contractors are in compliance with safety programs, and we'll often have to provide someone as oversight over contractors as well. So it's just really to keep on top of keep sharp, to keep on top of, what's safe, and especially in this environment, because this is not an environment heavy construction offers a lot more, well, I shouldn't say a lot more hazards, but it, you know, it obviously has its own set of criteria. It's probably a lot more hazardous in some respects.
Anyone else?
I work with small businesses who are trying to get government contracts or subcontracts, and the more I understand about what they're dealing with, the better off I am in trying to help them. And I know that safety is a big issue for workers' comp rates, and in some instances, a safety rating that is not at a particular level actually bars people from even being considered for subcontracts by the prime contractors. So I'm just trying to understand what they're based out there.
And we're gonna get into some of that information here real shortly.
I'm kind of like her, you know, except for I don't have that many employees, you know, we have less than 10. And anytime I've had an employee hurt, they've been trained, they know. I have, you know, it's not anything that I have done to cause the situation, it's the employee theirself. And that's the thing I'm trying to get around. I'm having to pay for their mistakes. Even when I have trained them, due diligence, done everything I possibly can. What in the world can you do to somebody besides fire them? Okay, that's the answer I always give. Well, you just fire them. Well, then you start from ground zero again. You know, and that's costly too. So I don't know where the, you know, where the answer is to get it through somebody's head that it's there. You know, they're gonna hurt themselves. Do they not care about themselves? I mean, if they don't care about my company, what about themselves? You know, I don't, that's where I'm having a problem at.
Well, you know, one of the things that, and I'll give anybody else a chance here in a minute, but one of the things that you brought up in that, you know, I mean, what it really boils down to sometimes, and I know for a while I got to that point myself, everything else, it's like, you know, how many times do I have to tell you not to do that? And why is it that I need to go check on you all the time to see if you can do your job? You know? I mean, I understand that and that concept. But again, when we're looking at that, sometimes it deals with focus. Okay? There's a lot of things out there that can cause problems, you know? We have a propensity of a lot of problems that goes on, not only in construction, but the changes that are going on in our society. And I do understand what you're talking about. You got 10 employees, you're trying to get a safety program. Actually, you really want the people to be safe and do their job so everything gets more functioning, working, and working better for you. And the bottom line, what it works down to is it comes out to what you've invested and what the return on your investment is. Okay? And that return on your investment is important. But a question you might ask yourself and everything else, you know, a lot of times we have to spend a lot of money on technology, okay, just to keep things going today. And it costs quite a bit to be involved in technology, okay? And I know that sometimes we want to cut those dollars and say, well, I have to purchase this product over here. It's going to cost me $10,000 to purchase this project, as opposed to maybe spending $3,000 or $4,000 on a safety program. But I need to look at really what's going to get me long-term best out of it, not the quick-term. Sometimes we get involved in a quick-term concern. The employee, and a good, safe employee, can bring you value in ways you can't even imagine. Because as they learn and as they work through the process, it's not like you can go to another person every once in a while in which you're indicating, go to another person, just put them on and get things going. It's sort of like also when they come out with a new iOS upload for a computer, everything's supposed to work great immediately when that comes out, and we find out that it doesn't work that way. Now, to give you that sort of indication, I work for Apple as an RTA out here at Yukon, and yesterday was a hectic day, okay? And so it was because it was a new iOS that came out. And people find that, hey, that they've done a lot of research and a lot of concept, and everything should work just exactly as the way it is. The problem is we want to plant it once, lay it to the side, and let it go. Okay? But really in our industry and in the industry, when we got a lot of people involved and we got a lot of technical equipment involved, and especially heavy equipment, there is a plethora of stuff that has to be done. It's a hard job. There's a lot of things to work. One of the things that I found that's worked really effective through the years for me was working with people to make sure that everybody on the job was concerned about everybody else. Okay? Concerned about everybody else. Trying to get that concept to, hey, this is important, that this person is somebody that we're concerned about too. As in a moment's notice, it can be over. About 2 years ago, a little longer than 2 years ago, I had 2 guys that were working, digging down in a hole with no shoring on, down here with the Indian casinos at. They probably worked together for years, known each other, maybe even knew each other's kids and wives, grandkids. Might have went fishing or hunting together, and both of them die in that hole. Because they just didn't simply look at the safety things. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time to put up the proper structure to keep that from happening and to protect you. And so they'll take that opportunity to step into a quick thing, jump in, let's get it done. People want to do a good job, but sometimes we got to provide them with the tools to do it correctly. Now, I haven't done any investigation in that job. I don't know what the whole circumstances was with it or what it might come out to be. But from the outside looking in, it appears that there was a lot of assumptions that were made. And assumptions is what gets us in trouble a lot of times when we deal with safety. Yeah. We got that one assumption that always gets us. Well, it ain't never going to happen to me. Yeah. It ain't never going to happen to me. Now, I know that ain't proper English, but you are in Oklahoma. Okay? So what we want to look at is how can we help the people by doing the proper things and getting the proper things involved. This program that we have here and this process we're going to deal with, I'm going to go through some slides and some information about a safety program and how you might develop a safety program and some things you might bring up with it. Typically in this course it would be something that would be taught over a 12-and-a-half-hour period. Well, I'm not going to take 12-and-a-half hours to be able to do that today and to help you with it, but I want you to see some of the information that's there. We've provided you with some of the information there, and I will give you my phone number and information so you can get a hold of me and I can help you later on with things if you need to. So, what we would do in this particular program is if completion of this process that we would do, this would give you the indication of what the people would know. Each individual would know in the safety program. They'll be able to explain what the safety culture is, what the importance of it is. They're going to be able to identify the causes of an accident. We'll be able to talk about some of the OSHA requirements. Now, many of you probably had some of the OSHA units, and I would not even begin to think that I could give you all of the plethora of information that OSHA brings out to you in one 4-hour course, okay? Because the book is about this thick and I can't even read it in 4 hours, but and it changes about the time I get through the 10th or 12th page on it, so things change back and forth. The government does that. But the reason the government does that is because of incidents. You know, that book would not be this thick if it wasn't for the incidents. Some people look at it and say, oh man, they've come up with all this. But actually the OSHA book is a compiled group of information for all kinds of industry practices, and it simply gives you information, things that you need to think of and thought processes. Has an index, you utilize the index, look up your particular area of expertise and what you're working with, and you can say, hey, that makes sense. I'll put together a program here. Now, why in the world would, if your guys that you're working on the job are heavy equipment operators, why in the world would you develop a program on making sure that they understand how to take care of paint? They're probably not going to paint, okay? Or the same situation, why would you take a painter and have him be required to understand how to operate a farm tractor? So safety is, while it is a big item, It also is an item that can be honed down to just your particular operation. You guys are in the position of understanding what your operations do and what your individual operations are. There is a great deal of information and resources that are out there to you, so you can actually hone that down. Now, what would you think would be the number one resource when you're dealing with a piece of equipment that you should utilize to help you develop a safety program?
Probably the manual or whatever.
What?
The manual? Is
The
it-
manual. The manual. You know, now, it's not typically the practice of the average construction guy to pick up the manual and look at it and read it. Now, he may pick it up and look at the front and the back, and it may be this thick or this thick, and if it's this thick, it probably isn't going to get opened. But it has a lot of information in there. It can help you in developing your safety program. And you can begin to walk the talk. There's some indications in there that'll tell you some different things. But let's look at some things that we'll bring into this program real quickly. Let's see, what are we looking time-wise? Why don't we go ahead and take about a 5-minute break? Give you guys a chance to stretch your legs a little bit, get you a cup of coffee. Quickly. Now, a question I would have in that situation, how many of you guys in your organization require a safety meeting, per se, or safety opportunity on a daily basis? How many of you guys, and this is probably the opportunity that goes, ends up with your guys showing up usually maybe 2 minutes before work or 5 minutes after work was supposed to start, and they're in a rush. Right? That process there sometimes can cause a problem. I know that it's sometimes people get upset and everything else that you put a rule that they have to be there by a certain time. Okay? They have to be there by a certain time. Okay? And most of us are probably those kind of individuals that say, yeah, I want to be at work. You know, I want to be there, want to get involved in the process, want to get things done. But sometimes when our people are in a hurry and in a rush is when the major assumptions get made. Okay, that's when they forget the hard hat. It's when they forget the safety vest. It's when they forget all of the things that they need, because their direction they're focused on is two things. First of all, I'm in trouble because I was late. Second situation is now I've got a whole lot of other things that I got to get done. Okay? So getting the people to understand that gets to be difficult. Now, I have a military background, okay? And I was with the military for a long period of time. And it was really hard when I got back into the industry to understand that I didn't have the ability to draw the line for someone, okay? Because in the military I can do that, okay? You will be here, you will be there to do that. But the other side of that is really in your own organization, you have the right to establish lines, okay? Problem is we also have to follow them as well. And we have to set the example, okay? And we set that example by what we bring forward. We get involved, we focus our attention on those things that need to be done and done the right way. First thing is understanding what it is that we're actually to be focused on. This information is going to give you sort of an outline and guideline of what safety we're looking at. There's personal protection equipment information in there. Personal protection equipment, basically PPE, is anything that goes on the body that can protect you. There is a plethora of types of that depending on the construction industry practice that you're involved in. It can range from just a simple hard hat situation or just some ear protection all the way up to being fully decked out with all the stuff that you have to have, especially if you're involved in chemicals and all that kind of stuff. And with each one of those, there's some requirements that have to be met. First of all, the reason why OSHA has established some standards and stuff is some of the items that were tried and tested did not work and didn't work well. I was part of that several years ago. They came out with those chemical suits that everybody's supposed to wear. And when they put those on us and we had to wear those, and their idea and concept was they had to take duct tape and duct tape it down tight around your body and all this kind of stuff. And then we were out running jackhammers and swinging sledgehammers. Several of our guys passed out right there on the job. So the safety can cause a problem too, and they figured out, well, the body's got to be able to breathe a little bit. And so they've developed now some new products. The industry is continuing to change, and we got to be willing to keep up with that resources and be able to understand that there is changes. So in putting this together and putting this process together, I don't have near the time to cover every aspect of thing that's going on, but I did want to give you sort of an overview of information. Okay? This right here is one of the places that you can pay the closest attention to. I know that we don't want to be the bad guy. Okay? None of us want to be the person that everybody hates to see show up on the job. Okay? We want to show up, we want to find out what's going on. But sometimes we've got to do some things to make sure that it's right. If you'll see here, you have an event, unsafe acts and conditions. You've established here, what we're talking about is management controls. That's this program that you're trying to establish, a safety program. You establish it as a rule. Okay? The first thing that happens, you'll find that there's going to be people that are going to be doing unsafe acts. What we found out through the research that's been done and everything else is for every little minor item of what we call a near miss, there'll be 600 of those to each fatality. But it grows and grows and grows. And yes, you might say, well, it didn't hurt anything. A near miss is where there was a potential incident or potential accident that was going to occur, and a lot of times we just let that ride. Just let that ride. Okay? I don't have time to deal with it today. You don't have time to deal with it. I need you to get this done. Okay, so today you forgot, had this happen on the job. Today you forgot your safety vest. We're working on I-40. You forgot your safety vest. So, but we need to really get this done and everything else. Just remember to bring it tomorrow. That's what the guy was told. Just remember to bring it tomorrow. Go ahead, I need you to go ahead and get on the job. Okay? His job was what we call a greaser. Okay? A greaser. He's a guy that lubricated the equipment while it was in process. Okay? He's working over an item that was running as a planer that we were using on the road. We're grinding the concrete down. He's up there trying to get his job done, and where it's at, we weren't shutting the operation down. He was continuing to check things and make things that were working right. It's a little cool, so he's got on a pair of coveralls. Okay? Got on Carhartt coveralls, I-40. He's leaned over in a piece of equipment. Traffic is coming by us very quickly and everything else. Truck driver's driving along the road. Truck driver's got a vehicle that's unsafe in itself, a near-miss situation, a chain that's been dangling off the back of the truck for no telling how long. Okay? He just didn't take the time to fix it and get it taken care of. As he drove by the piece of equipment, the young man didn't have the vest on. The truck driver didn't see him. He's been over there. The truck driver didn't slow down. The chain caught the Carhartts. Right here. The little belt loop. Jerked him off the piece of equipment. Traveled about almost 3/4 of a mile before the Carhartts gave way. He fell off of the unit, rolled down in the ditch. Ended up with both legs broken, broken rib, dislocated shoulder. 17 years old. Good possibility he probably won't work again in the industry because he won't be able to maintain that work standard. All because in a lot of situations there were several things, near misses, near incidents, that could have been done or prevented. We can look at that and say, well, there's a lot of things that could have been done. And we have a propensity a lot of times to go back and do the 20/20 hindsight. What if, what if, what if, what if? But as operations are going on, we have to look at the will it occur? We have to look forward to that. We've got to get our people to understand to look forward. Yeah, truly, I might be able to get in this chair that's got wheels on it, climb up on it, and reach up there at the ceiling to take care of something. But is that very smart? Should that be a wise situation? I'm 61 years old. First of all, getting in the chair might be a challenge. Second situation, standing up there and keeping balance and rolling up. We can see that as foolishness. But when we've got people working on the job, we've got to understand that near miss, we're busy in our office trying to get things done. And we've got a light that's been out. We tell somebody, no, get that light bulb taken care of before I can do it. And we don't pay attention to the fact that they didn't have a ladder, so they climbed up on the desk. And they're trying to do what you want. Next thing you know, they step over the edge of that table tips up, and down they go. Now, it's that mindset that we're looking at. Safety starts in here. We were talking just a moment ago. You can provide all kinds of safety programs and a plethora of information back and forth to the individuals. You can fill up all kinds of rooms of different items for them. But if you don't get to the concept that, hey, you need to do it safely, that's most important to me. Most important to me is your safety. Now then, I know you're going to have those that are going to come back and say, well, I can't do this job because it's unsafe. I can't do that job because it's unsafe. And sometimes it requires us to take on another measure. But really, we want to provide them with a safe opportunity to do their job. The investment we make ahead, most of the times come back to us many times fold over that than it does for us to go ahead and say, well, we'll just wait and see how long it is before something happens. Near misses, like I say, 600 of those incidents on average happen. And that's day-to-day activity. It's because we don't pay attention to it. You know, jokingly, we'll talk about the person that drives down the road with one of these in their hand and text messaging and answering all this kind of stuff, and what a fool they are. And yet, so many of us will take out the same camera, driving down the same road, and take a picture of it to show it, to send it to our friend. We sometimes do those kind of things in ourselves, thinking, oh, it's okay, you know. But it can happen just at a moment's notice. An incident can happen to anyone.
Those ratios, is that within the industry,
Within-
construction industry, heavy highway?
Within the construction industry.
Building construction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the near misses that they're talking about can be all kinds of different situations. You know, and we have them set up sort of phase that we looked at. About 30 property damage incidents occur, and then you've got minor injuries, usually around 10 of those to every one that actually becomes serious. Okay, and so when you come to the guys and say, listen guys, I want you to make sure that you've got your hard hat on today because I don't want you to die. And he's thinking, I'm going to die today when all I'm doing is moving ceiling tile? And they look at you foolishly. Well, why should I have to have a hard hat on? Well, sometimes we get in that and think, well, if we tell them that they're going to die, they're going to take more attention to it. But really, the possibility of them dying from one of those ceiling tiles falling down on them is going to be pretty slim. And they say, well, that's foolishness. Why would somebody tell me that? But the other incidents, many of those are going to happen. And if we direct our attention there more than to fatality prevention, we can reduce those down to minor near misses. Keeping the attention to that, the potential of somebody being actually so seriously injured that it's going to cost you a lot of money is going to save a number of ways. Think about it. So sometimes a harsh program requires a look forward. I'm doing this for the safety of the people. Okay? And that's what you have to do. Because once they get involved with that, I don't know how many times I've had people come back and I'll say I get upset with something with them. I'll have them on the job, and after about 3 or 4 days, they come back and say, wow, I really see now why you want me to do that. Because this job is being done different. It means we've got to change thoughts. We've got to change concepts. Okay? We've been doing the same thing, the same way for so long that we think it should work. When I was with the federal government, we were back then during the Carter administration, so that was a while ago. For some of you guys, you wasn't even alive then. But we had really got challenged with not being able to spend any money. You know how the government is. You get tied in all the money and stuff like that. Well, one morning I came into work and the guys had put a sign and hung it above my office up there. And it says, we have done so much for so long with so little that now we can almost do anything with nothing. And sometimes we feel like that's what's happening with us, don't we? You're requiring us to do all of this stuff. And that's what happens when we get involved in this. You know, it's a big job. There's a lot of stuff. But if we take that few moments and think and look at it in a different direction, if we can slow down this, we can almost eliminate the thing on the top. Just think about that. It's that near-miss situation. You know, we all got stories and jokes and things that we've seen that's happened on a project. But if we can understand that concept, reduce the large portion, once we reduce that large portion and everything else, we almost eliminate any potential of any of you having to write that letter to a parent or to a family. That's what it's all about. Also, you're going to find out there's going to be some great things that happen that way. Okay? Some neat things, especially for the business side of it. Your insurance rate will change. Once you get to the point where you've established a program where the near misses become the focus rather than meeting compliance all the time, those issues diminish. It's like that iceberg there. What we see on the top, that insured, the medical bills, compensation, premiums, all those kind of things, those are costs that have been directly affected us and continue to increase and get larger because of the fact people aren't paying attention to the 600 near misses. They're paying attention to that one fatality. I don't know how long you guys have been in business or how long you've been there, but some of you may have had somebody that died on the job. Some of you may have shortly. Those are the kind of things that we have to look at. And that's scary to us. And that side of it. But what we can do is we can help the guys that are out there. We want to help them do a better job by getting that focus in the right situation. When I was a kid, my dad was in the military. When I was a kid, we were required. He was in the military, was a sergeant, drill sergeant. When he walked into the bedroom, he would reach into his pocket, pull out a quarter, and flip it up on the bed. It better bounce, or you're in trouble. Okay? Now, some people think that's really harsh, but to this day, it works. I make my bed each morning. Okay? Because it's straight. Now my dad is living with me. And he makes his bed every morning. He's 81 years old. Still makes his bed. It's a habit that's established. But the funny part about that is some other things that happen. We had went to the petrified forest when I was a kid, and we got a chunk of petrified wood. Okay, it's about that big around. that he had gotten from the little store thing there. We'd taken that home, and he thought it needed a neat doorstop. Yeah, he set it out as a doorstop. Yeah, and where he set it as a doorstop, every morning when he'd get up to go to work, he'd trip over it. Yeah. He kept tripping over it, and finally, he'd get mad about it and angry about it. It got moved. The tripping hazard wasn't there anymore. Now, then the first day when it got moved, he come over there and he walked by there, and there was something different to him. And it was, what's going on here? Something's different. We should look at safety in the same situation. If we have a tripping hazard, don't wait for somebody else to get it taken care of. Take care of it. Get that person to understand, listen, I don't want to trip on it anymore, and I don't want anybody else to. Getting those concepts in there. Thinking about that situation, thinking ahead, can make all the difference in the world. We don't want to have to shut down a job, but we also don't want to cause these problems. Again, what happens is your insurance rate begins to reduce up there when you get those 600 items taken care of, and also you get less property damage, you get less equipment damage, less production delays. All of those things begin to diminish. And this glacier becomes an ice cube. Okay? It's easily navigated around. That's what we should think of in safety. We want to navigate this down. And we can do it that way. We can do it through the concepts. Keeping the people informed. All of us have seen these. These are signs. Now, a lot of times in the industry, you run across the signs that are all dilapidated, tore up, been run over, got asphalt or concrete all over them. You can't read them. But they're there for a reason. Get the people to the point of understanding the sign. I've had times where just sort of play games with them. Walk up to a job site, and when I get ready to leave the job site, I ask them, what's that sign over there say? Don't look at it. What's it say? Because if they remember what it is, then it keeps it in mind. We could do all these signs all over the place, but if the people don't pay attention to it, don't know that it's there, how good is it going to work? Sure, it might need compliance. I got to have it up there. But really, they don't understand what it is or know what it is, or what the reason for it is. This is sort of the way they develop the signs, sort of give you information that. Now, one of the things that we have happen on the job site that can cause a safety problem is what we call horseplay. Okay? This is one of my pet peeves. Okay? Don't like horseplay. I've seen too many people get hurt. People want to have humor and comedy and all that kind of stuff. I understand that. They got to lighten the mood because they've been under a lot of tension, all that kind of stuff. But it should have some guidelines. Okay? If you allow this kind of stuff to happen in your work site, then you're going to actually have more of those near misses and more of those property damage situations are going to come up. So in this process, what we're looking at is trying to eliminate horseplay. And the way you do that, really in that situation, is getting the people to understand that you do have a sense of humor, okay? That you do have a sense of humor, and that you really want to get the job accomplished and trying to get things done, and that you do have a busy schedule, but you understand that they need to release a little bit. So, allowing them a few moments to take a breather. I've had situations where the guys get involved in that and say, listen, let's take a break for a minute. And then we'll get back to work. You can go out there and goof around a little bit. That few moments in a break can potentially save an incident from occurring on the job. Sometimes they can get really foolish in some of the situations. 18-year-olds in the military. It can really do some strange things. Oh, this look neat. Another problem that's a pet peeve of mine is coming to work intoxicated or under the influence, okay, of some kind of medication. And some people will test this to the nth degree, okay? But we have to be prone to understanding that, and also looking at situations of the people that are involved. How many of you guys really want to work with somebody that's so incapacitated that they can't do their job? But we need to make sure we've got an attitude that not so much a punishment type situation, but a concern. I can't allow you to go out there and run equipment today because it can be too costly for you and me. Okay? And those are the kind of things that happen. Now, if it happens on a continued basis, yeah, you have to follow those processes. Possibly looking at either that person end up getting some help or that person end up going on to another career. We don't like to look at it that way, but that's what happens. Safety is a really important issue. You've got people that are having problems or incapacitated. Now, it doesn't have to be illegal substances. It can simply be a person that is a diabetic, having a problem with their blood sugar. It could be a simple situation where the person went to the doctor a couple of days ago and they gave them a different medication. And a different medication caused them problems. Sometimes we don't have to look at it as a illegal situation that they're involved in. And I think that sometimes others hesitate that. But where this gets involved is being able to communicate. Open communication. Failure to communicate to our employees sometimes can cause real problems. Because we'll get upset when we have to do this in that situation. And some of them can be offensive. Oh, you think I'm a drunk? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is right now, in the position that you're at, you're unsafe. And I can't have that. Simple situation. We were informed here a few minutes ago when we first started this, that this is a smoke-free campus, okay? As long as you clearly understand that, it's not a problem. What we have to do with our people who are working, hey, this unsafe practice, it's not that I'm telling you that you can't drink. I'm just simply telling you that it's not allowed in my job. Because it's too costly. One of the items we'll also look at when we're doing the safety program is the regulations. A couple of them that we've talked about, OSHA. The actual law is 126.501. Okay, that's a 29 CFR. Some of you guys probably went through that, how this process works. Especially at the levels that you guys are at currently. I know you know what this is, but how well do your guys know it? How well do they understand that it's an item that's identified in the municipalities where I teach? I have to get them, we actually get out the book and go through those processes, and what I try to do with them is to get them to understand these are incidents that have occurred and something has happened so serious. We're at the top of that pyramid, okay? Property damage or cost of life, incidents that occurred that OSHA has got involved in because of an investigation from either an insurance company or an attorney, and have addressed those practices of how do we solve this? What things should we have done different? And that law gives you some insights and some information on it. It's a very valuable tool for you to get and to break it down for your organization. There's no sense in you trying to develop a safety program for someone using chemicals if you never use chemicals. But if you do use chemicals, it's a good thing to have. And look at it more, instead of it being a law, oh, I can't do this, it's a help. Okay? Concepts is what it's all about. Trying to get people to understand those in that situation. And the way we address our safety programs and the way we address our people, that's what we're looking for. It's not, can I put the thumb down on you at law and force you to do something? How many of you guys drove here today followed the exact speed limit? Okay? Just because it's a law doesn't mean that it's going to be followed. Okay? We have to look at it in that situation. How many of you have ever looked at it in that way? That, hey, it's not just a suggestion. You know, those speed limit signs are out there because that's a safe operation. If we want our people to be safe, we have to understand safety. Safety starts from the moment you get up in the morning till you lay your head down at night. Should be in that concept. Now that doesn't mean that you're never going to be involved in an incident or an accident. But it does mean that you reduced it down quite a bit. You just look at the near misses. Getting people to understand that. Yeah, we can recite law and we can go through that law in that process, but the biggest thing to understand is this is a resource tool. And your guys should understand it's a resource tool. And I would imply to each and every one of you, if you don't have a copy of the OSHA, you actually get one. You can download it on the internet now. And have it for the guys so that they can review it. Many of you guys can get involved in some brand new operations. Some things that are top of the line, front, ready to go. See what you got as far as rules you need to look at. Kind of things you do. I know we're an unruly organization, most of us in that situation. We want to do it our way, type situation. But there is some basic guidelines we need to follow. And that's what we got to get the people to do. Understanding that, hey, I need to look at this safely. Different concept about the rules and regulations. 4 principal hazard areas. Let's give you sort of an indication of what we have. Now, if this was a course that I was teaching to your workers and stuff like that, we'll get into the detail of that and break all of that down so they understand that situation. But potentially, this is your largest one, and it's just simply falls. Those falls are created in all kinds of different ways. But it comes down to one thing: unstable standing. Yeah? So we can look at it in that situation, and guys begin to do that. Hey, it's a near miss. It's not a good idea to stand on things that are not meant to stand on. Getting them to understand that in that process. Another one we have is struck by. Now, with those of you that are working on the highways and have people working in the highway industry, you can understand that one. Well, I tell you, that I-40 out there is a dangerous roadway. But you know what? 2nd Street in Edmonds is just as bad. I've worked in a lot of places directly out on the street. And people, well, you got all the targets out there that you can see. You set those up and everything else in that situation. But still yet, the people are being placed in a dangerous position. And it takes that observation. It's not how close can I get to the line before I get in trouble. No, it's how can I keep away from that line. Those concepts, it's a different thought process. How can I be safe at what I do? How can I help someone else be safe at what they do? Yeah? But you can get struck real quickly. Caught in. We mentioned a situation where the people had the hole that collapsed on them. That can happen when you're digging in the digging industry. It happens quite a bit. There's some soil information. We, in this process, also break down how the soils make a difference on what processes you take. Okay? But what I try to do to address the guys is to look at it not so much as, did you follow all of this rule exactly? Have you got the tape measure out and made sure that it's exactly this many inches and that many feet and all this kind of stuff? More along the concept of every site is different. Every concept is different. But what have we addressed? Have we taken that moment just to think through the process and say, listen, this is what I need to do? You know, in Edmond, they've had so much of a potential of problems with that. One of the things that they've been doing is all the guys get told that all of the soils in Edmond are considered as sea soils. Okay? Because that way they have to set up the work zone in a proper way. They've got to make sure that they've got all the structure in the hole that needs to be there. Just to save that situation. And sometimes we can think of that. But it makes no sense to try to do that if you're digging in solid rock. It's going to cost you a whole lot more for that job because it's going to take a lot longer to dig it out to put that in there, concept-wise. But then we've got electrical areas, electrical shorts, and different things like that happen. Biggest thing on that near miss, is that electrical extension cord that you see that the guys have been using. It's got the same frayed line on it that's been there for, the last 5 jobs you come to. And he's got the same extension cord, okay, plugged into it. That's okay. And somebody ends up spilling some water down on it. Somebody walks by, next thing you know, somebody's electrocuted. It can happen. But the guy's looking at the concept, hey, listen, I need to replace that extension cord. I don't want to bring that out on the job anymore. Get a different way. Getting that concept in it. And others are all kinds of different things that could happen. Okay? There is a job, this is sort of just a general type form that we would talk about on how job safety analysis form. It tells us some things. Military, they use the checklist. We use a whole lot of different products like that. But again, sort of like that owner's manual, most of the guys have a problem of picking it up and going through it. Oh, this is going to take too long to do. But if they understand that, hey, this is what's needed, gets in that. The construction company I worked for a while, the owner of the company was really, really hinged on when he visited a job site, I want to see your to-do list. I want to see your to-do list. Okay? And so I started writing a to-done list. And he'd come out there and I had the to-do list, but then I had the to-done list. And he says, well, what's this? I said, this is the ones where it shows I actually got it done. Not that I got to get it done, but it is done. Because isn't that what you want, the end project? Not look forward to see how much more stuff I got to do, but look to see what I got done. Different concept. Looking at things in a different way. But this sort of a general form gives them opportunity to understand that. This is another type. This is a checklist. I say with the military we did that. This might be something you want to put together for an individual job, especially like at a safety meeting or something like that. That you're going to be put together, or something that they can do to make sure they got certain things. And bring out some things that are important. Don't just find a file and cut and paste it. That's what we have a tendency to want to do sometimes, is to do that. Take a moment, and if you take the moment to develop it and develop it accurate to them, it's going to make more sense to them. It's going to make more meaning to them. They're going to say, listen, she really looked this up. She found out about this stuff, and this is important for our job. It makes an effective safety program. It's not one of these things, well, I got to have a safety meeting. They're here. They're going to tell me I got to do this, got to do that. I don't remember how many times it was I'd tell people, buckle up their seatbelts. Buckle up your seatbelts. How many times they go out on the job and they didn't have seatbelt on? That repetitiveness doesn't necessarily get them to do it. My dad was notorious for not buckling his seatbelt. He gets in the car now and buckles his seatbelt. because I won't move the car until it does. Sure, sometimes it makes it a little bit later, but now he's got to where he gets in, buckles the seatbelt. I said, Dad, it's not. He's, well, I got it. I don't think I should have to do this. It's not a matter of whether you think you should. Just do it. Just do it. You'll find out it works better. Yeah? Yeah, it's changing your concept. And that's what you want to do with a safety program. We've had years and years of safety programs. We meet all the guidelines. We fill out all the blocks, put all the stuff in there in the situation. We still have accidents. We still have incidents. We still have property loss, property damage, people getting hurt. And we've worked hard. We spent all them hours and years looking and evaluating and all this kind of stuff. The message just isn't getting to the people. We want to get it to the people on their level. On their level. These are some common type barriers that could be used to mark off an area that you're going to be digging in. Each one of them has their required place where they're supposed to be. Some of them are effective for certain things. Some of them are effective for others. In a full program, we would go through each individual one and when they can be used. This is a warning. As you've seen on the previous picture there, that's that warning that's right there. We also talk about safety lanyards and all these people, and many of you may have as much or more information about lanyards than I do and how to use them. The biggest thing I understand with the lanyards that I've used through the years is if it has a tear, a rip, or a snag in it, it's not safe. Period. It needs to be off the job site. Yes, it means you may have to buy another one. Yes, it means you may have to go get a different one. If you left the job site or left the tool section, went to the job site, and you got there and discovered that it was torn or ripped, to me that's a problem within the management situation. Hey, you needed to look and check it out first. But they do not need to continue to use it. Okay? Just that simple, because these most of the time are set for an average, on the average size of a person of about 150 pounds. I've seen very few construction workers nowadays that weigh 150 pounds. Most of us weigh a little bit more than that. 150 plus you know, is what that situation is. So now you can get some that are higher in that lift level. They cost more money. But the other side of that is if they throw it in the truck at the end of the day, or leave it on the job and run over it and then pick it up and throw it in, that's not what needs to be done. They need to have a place to put it. They need to have a place for it to be, so it'll be kept safe. It needs to be kept out of weather, because it can be destroyed by weather, depending on what it is. The guys, and many of the guys that I've known that work in the construction industry, want to do the right thing. Okay? But they've got to have the right tools and the right equipment and the right storage to do it. There's various different types of those. Now, the lanyard, one of the things, these are for your fall prevention. It's extremely important that these have no phrase in them for sure, because there may be one time that they may need to be used. And somebody slips and falls off of a piece of scaffolding 20 foot in the air is not the time that it needs to be tested. Okay? Because if you look at it, it could end up being a problem. As you see in this drawing here, the purpose of it is to prevent the person from hitting the ground. Now, if the distance of the lanyard is 6 foot in length, okay, and you're on a beam that is 4 foot above the ground, yeah, it's not going to work real effective. Okay, you fall off, you're going to hit the ground, and you still got 2 foot left behind you. Okay, so it needs to be adjusted to whatever you're working with. But it is required by law that it be no longer of a fall than 6 foot. Reason being on that, what we found out in that situation, in that it's less potential to cause dislocation of body parts. Okay? That's a reason why it's at that point. Get a little bit longer than that and everything else, then you can end up pulling the shoulder loose. You can end up actually breaking the back. If it gets caught in the wrong way, across the rib cage, it can crack a rib. These are sort of the weight limits that are on there, ranging between, depending on the width and the thickness of the lanyards that are available. You can go up to about 375 pounds, which is a pretty good sized construction worker. Hopefully he's over 6 foot tall. Of course he may not be. Okay, then we'll also talk about ladders and how ladders work, and this is important, especially for certain industries. Almost any industry, okay? Some of you guys work heavy construction. Well, a lot of times they need a ladder to get up on a piece of equipment, okay? Especially due to some of the maintenance to it, different things like that. It's important to understand ladders. This and this are pretty good ladders. This one should be very limited in use. Never used around electrical at all, okay, because it is conducive to electricity transferring through it. There's various ones, there's step ladders, extension ladders. We would get into a detail telling them exactly how to set those ladders. This item that's at the foot of this is for a grip to hold the ground, okay? It's not to be turned up or taken off or unbolted and thrown away. It can be a real help to you. This is the process of setting a ladder, okay? You see the distance it's set through from the ladder is 16 feet, and you got to have it at least 3 foot above. There's a reason for that rule, okay? It's not just to be ornery or to make sure you have to buy a taller ladder, okay? There's a reason for that. If you guys ever been up on a ladder, any kind of length distance, especially when you get up real high distance, that additional 3 foot gives you a little bit of stability to get off and onto that ladder, okay? It can make a difference on whether the person gets hurt or not. You'll notice the guy has all the construction equipment gear on. Some situations, you may have to secure the ladder. These are the recommended ways to secure a ladder. Now they do have an item now. This one here's got a clip that goes over the side, but they do have now an item that goes that you can get. It's an aluminum piece that straps onto the ladder. It holds it up for stability. See, a lot of the roofers around here nowadays use those because they're carrying the load on their shoulder as they're coming in and out. This is moving up down the ladder 3 points. You see, he's walking there, he's got both feet and at least one hand on the ladder. That 3 points of contact is important all the way through. If you get on an extension ladder and that item there is missing, that rung lock, you're probably going to come down at a very rapid pace. It'll be quite a shock to you, to the system. Okay? Check the lock, make sure that it's closed on a rung. No, it's not there just for a tripping hazard. It's for safety. This also give you some of the insights of this is some good information for you developing a program. Has the do's and the don'ts of a ladder. Okay, and it can really help some of you working with ladders and working through those processes. This is scaffold. Okay. There's a lot of information about scaffolds. One of the first thing that usually comes out in one of these courses is the fines that you have to pay to OSHA when you're not using scaffold properly. It gets your attention. You know? Sometimes our people, when we're dealing with them, we get the best response from them when we start hitting them in the pocketbook. Well, that's sort of what the federal government sort of filled out too, is they can get us to do things right and go with it. The scaffold is important to be set up properly. Now then, I would say if you have scaffolding that you're using in your profession, that you make sure that you go through the manual for that particular scaffolding, because there is about 45 different varieties out there, okay, of different kinds of scaffolding, and each one of them have different purposes, and each one of them have different ways to set up and to be used and utilized. So we want to make sure we do the right one with it. If you are an industry that has multi-scaffolding pieces, make sure that the scaffold piece that you're utilizing goes with the items you're using. Don't try to jerry-rig it together, okay? And don't allow the people to do that. You come to a job site and that's what they've done. Everything else, you need to stop this function at that time. And they need to get it corrected, because that can get you real quickly and get somebody hurt, okay? The higher it goes up, the wider, the longer it should be, okay? And also, when you're utilizing this, just like any other piece of equipment, you should utilize the tagging process, okay? There should be a green tag on it, or yellow tag, or a red tag. If the guys will get used to doing that and making sure that it's accomplished, when they see that, then they know whether it's going to be a safe operation. Okay? Whether it be a heavy piece of heavy equipment, whether it be the scaffolding, whether it be the ladder, whether it be the skill saw with the cord cut off of it. Okay? All of those you can tag in that situation and help. You can get these tags really fairly inexpensive, you know, for what you can get done with them. Set a tagging process, color code, it identifies it. Now you got to remember, some people are colorblind. Okay? That's the reason why it's important to have it where it says a complete caution and danger. Okay? So you can do that. Okay? The reflective gear, we've mentioned that a couple of times. I'm going to talk about it for a minute and then we're going to take a break. Reflective gear, there is approved and there's unapproved. Okay? This is Hunter's Orange. Okay, International Orange. This is what you use to hunt with. Okay? This is what you use to work with. Okay? Yes, sir.
Between the two colors in construction, don't some states have approved daytime and nighttime? One's day, one's night?
In some cases they can. In projects they can do that. You're going to definitely in the nighttime want ones that are most reflective. Okay? And the purpose of it, and like I've instructed the people, we got into a discussion up in Edmond about it. It's not a fashion style. Okay? Yes. You know, there's nothing fashionable about these. It isn't meant to be fashionable. It's meant to be a visual ability for people to see you. Okay, that's the reason for it, is high visibility. Okay, so that everybody can see you. And it's not so they can see if you're working or not. It's so they can see you in the process of the job you're doing around these areas. And very important to utilize these around roadway areas. Okay? roadway areas and stuff like that.
Concerning working by the train tracks, we ran into that issue. They've actually asked for these kind of safety situations.
Yeah.
So that's what threw us off, is we usually use that very high bright fluorescent, and we had to switch gears and go that route.
Right.
So.
Right, and depending on the job, okay, that is true, okay. Most of these are high visual at nighttime. The railroad administration is behind the times and has been for a long period of time, and do have regulations within their area. Now remember, you're in their right of way, okay? When you're inside their right of way, they have their own set of rules, okay? And that's an important situation, especially if you're working with people that are doing different projects. Find out what it is. When I travel to different states, there's different states have different rules. The rules in California are a great deal different than the rules in Idaho, okay? And so it's important that we said, again, is we're trying to help our people make sure that the rules and the things that we're providing for them are sufficient for what they're doing, not just make assumptions.
Is that because of, just because we're used to, for instance, the railroad industry, they're just used to that color, and that's the reason?
I couldn't even assume to understand why they want to make a difference other than the railroad just does things different.
They have certain colors for engines and linemen and everything else, so they have to stand
I
out.
suspect it's
But
a
they
safety
don't
issue.
do red,
Yeah.
because red is the stop color.
Right.
Yeah.
Like in the yellow is caution.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the boards, you'll see boards.
Mhm. Yeah, and you've got, well, the same situation with the military. If you're working on an airfield, there's different type of vests that we utilize for those. And because they've got different things that they do them with. You've got signalers that wear one type, and you got construction that wears different ones.
And a lot of times under projects that have rail projects or whatever, railroads on there, that will have special provision on there.
Yeah.
Plan notes that says you can only wear these colors.
Which brings out a point that I like to bring out to people. Read the spec. Oh man, that's another course I teach, and that's so many times you give the guy a specification and a blueprint, and they'll take the specification, toss it in the trash, and take the drawing, and then they want to argue with you about the drawing. Read the spec, because there's information in there for you. Okay. And the same situation you'll have with hard hats. You got different colored hard hats, and some job sites require certain ones. They've got green ones and blue ones and red ones and yellow ones, and it's not for fashion; it's for safety precautions. You know, some places white one is an inspector, okay, and a red one may be a trainee. Right now in Edmond, when I take a training class out to work on a job site, we utilize red, okay, for an indication. A couple of reasons there. We have a lot of people that don't show up on a job site, and so we get a phone call. Well, why is there 12 people on that one job? You know, well, all of them with the red hat are in training, okay, at a particular time, and they're visiting the job site. But there's a lot of different stipulations of that, and again, I wouldn't get too much involved in making sure it's all the certain ones. I would make sure that what it is within the job site that you're doing, so that you do give the right message. You know, I mean, just imagine if someone were to decide that all the lights in the city need to be all green. You know, we're going to have some major traffic incidents pretty shortly, okay? Because everybody's going to get confused, okay? Okay, when we talk about rock, and I mentioned earlier solid rock, which is type A soil, and then you got type B and you got type C. And C soil is the one that's most prevalent to be unstable, okay? That means that it has more propensity to move, okay? That's where your sands and stuff like that's going to be, okay, as a type C. And so when you're getting somebody involved, and they're actually doing dirt work, and a lot of your people over here doing dirt work, they need to understand that there's a difference between them and how you set up your job site. Now, in this particular concept here, when you open it back off of it, you've got less potential people getting hurt, and you have no requirement then by OSHA to have it set up with a drag box or trench box or anything like that in it. But in some cases, you don't have the capability to do that, But we also instruct on how to figure that out. In this case here, this is what they call is benching some soil. This is probably going to be a B-type soil, and you'll be able to bench it. Again, sort of gives you the same concept of moving back, but it also allows you to utilize that without having to put in the ladder, the egress ladder, and you can take the steps and come out of it. Now then, there is a measure there that they have to consider. If it's clay-type soils and you get a rainy day, now all of that can be destroyed or be a problem. Okay? This is a formula that's used. It's 3/4 of a foot back to 1 foot of depth. Okay? That's what they should be utilizing. So if you've got a 4-foot wide hole that's 12 foot down, okay, then you've got to calculate how far that the upper top of that hole is going to be. Again, this is here is for type A soil. Okay? Type B is it's 1-to-1, 1 foot back to 1 foot in depth. And then type C is 1.5 foot back to 1 foot in depth. And it's important for your guys out there that are doing, especially digging and stuff, that they understand that concept. And that they take a tape measure with them. Don't just guesstimate it. Okay? Because it can really make a difference on, on what's going to happen on that job. Again, remembering that when you're planning these jobs and stuff, that means you're going to have to move more dirt. You have to remove more soil. It's going to take a little longer time. Putting that into your information and understanding that when you're planning jobs can really help. This particular hole here is shored. You'll notice the guys are in it. This is the shoring that's used. This one here looks like this is a regular standard aluminum type shoring. This ladder that's coming out of that's an egress ladder. It has to be extended 3 foot above. It has to be set 25 foot. The person should not have to move any further than 25 foot laterally to get to that. If you got to move further than that, you need to put another ladder in. Okay? Reason being is even while you've got this and tried to stabilize it, doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily stay there. Okay? Something could happen in the hole and could change everything, especially if you're working on a major water line. You take that 60-inch water line that's down there in Oklahoma City, south part of Oklahoma City. You dig down around that and put all the shoring and everything else, and if something happens and that line breaks open and it's got full force on it, you're going to need to get out of the hole quick. Getting the guys to understand that it's not just, we're trying to look at a safe way to help them. You know, save their life. This is a drag trench box. I mentioned that a minute ago. You drag that down along the hole as you're working. You can see that's a pretty good sized job by those guys that are standing out there on that pipe. This is a barricade. We identify them to set up barricades around it. See that it's 8 foot in length, 2 foot wide. So you want to make sure you've got the hole covered all the way around. I mentioned a little bit earlier saw guards. Why don't we take a break for about 5 minutes or so. We're going to wrap this. I put my name and address up there, or name and phone number and stuff, so you can get in contact with me. And yes, I have AOL account still. I'm a creature of habit, and that's the one that I'll check most likely. Well, I have about 9 different email addresses. That's the one that usually gets my attention quicker. So
I have Cox and MSN, and I had all kinds of different ones, and then University of Phoenix, and Francis Tuttle, and with Apple I got about many of them. We was looking at potential of hazards safety-wise. One of the things that we bring out really true, and you should bring out in your safety program, is the guards that are on these machines. There is a concept with some of the people out there that they don't need them, they're in their way. What I used to do sort of jokingly when I would have a subcontractor come to a job site for the first time that I would meet him and everything else, I would make sure that I got to shake his hand and see both hands, okay? To see if all the fingers were there, okay? That gives me sort of an indication how kind of a safe guy is he, okay? Because these things can cause those things to disappear. Yeah? You can end up losing hands. You can end up getting cut real quickly. The machine is a machine. It's going to do what it's supposed to do when the power is put to it. And anything that happens to be in front of it, if it's a saw, it's designed to cut. It will cut. Okay? I'm getting the guys to understand that. You know, don't just reach over and flip it on. Yeah, sure, I'd throw the screwdriver up there on the table saw. I got the screwdriver laying there and everything else. Reach over and flip the switch. It clicks that. The screwdriver goes flying across the room, hits somebody else, or does some damage. Just that moment of thought, just prior to, and getting the guys to understand that. Yeah. But the guards are there for a reason, and it's to help you. Okay. We talk about what electrical current can do. Okay. Gives the information. This can help them in some cases with bodily harm. Talk about the difference between the grounding. Another thing to look for as an unsafe practice is if the extension cord or the piece of equipment that's plugged into the wall has that bottom piece cut off. That's an unsafe cord. I know it may go ahead and work. It may go ahead and run the machine, but it's unsafe. Okay? It can cause a problem. It needs to be replaced. You need to get the guys to understand that. Look at the cord and just continue to use it. There's also a caution equipment that's on them. It talks about it. That particular item there is telling us about it being a double insulated unit. There's different kinds of plugs and GFIs. These are ground fault units. They're supposed to be reset and supposed to be able to be used in an emergency situation. They're not common everyday uses is what they're supposed to be used for. They're used for situations like when all the power goes off and the lights dim. You still should have electrical power if you've got a generator system to it. That's what they are. And also they're places where there may be an indication of a shortfall that comes back. But that's a little circuit breaker that's in the red, that little red center there, the circuit breakers, and turns it back on. Should be tested and made sure that it does click on and click off. And you can get them on various different pieces of equipment. These are some of the electrical lockout tags that we talked about. You lock out an information so that somebody doesn't, if you're started working with a piece of equipment, especially if you're working with an item such as a generator, a large generator or something like that, you want to lock it out so that somebody doesn't come along and turn it on. If you're dealing with equipment, it's a good idea, and especially around any of the government facilities, they require a lockout, tag out type process, and I would tell you to go ahead and do some research and study on that. A good supply source for lockout and tag out stuff is through Granger. They can have about anything and everything you could want. Safety glasses and safety shields. concrete industry is notorious for requiring them, but you can't never see out of them. Okay? And you keep them clean, keep them put away. Try to get the guys to understand the various different types of those. There's times when you've got to have a full face shield. Full face shield is recommended for anything that's flying in big particle structures and things like that could come back at you, fiber and stuff. So, gloves, depending on the type of work you're trying to do. And I did have to dig in the closet to find a pair that were dirty, so you can see that I do things with it. But gloves, making sure that they are maintained correctly. You know, how many times do you go out to a job site and the guys are out there working and they don't have a pair of gloves on? They don't understand, why do I need them? They're just a hassle, they're a hindrance. No, they aren't. They save you from some situations. Making sure that they got a good understanding of that. Okay. Noise and ear protection. Depending on what you're working with and everything else, it can go down to a simple situation of just, these are little foam earplugs that you can put in and protect, or go up to complete closure, depending on, again, the noise level. These are the noise level requirements that can be produced. Now this is talking about a drill hammer. This is not a jackhammer. Different. Okay? It has more power. These are examples of respiratory equipment. And the MSDS sheet. How many of you guys know everything on the MSDS sheet? I'm sorry that you don't understand all of those things. We did try real hard to develop those properly back in the years ago when I was working, helping, trying to get those developed. And they do have a real good purpose, but a lot of situations get misled. Okay? What I try to do when I teach with these people, everything else, is to understand there's some very valuable information on the MSDS. If you look at item number 8, this information can tell you a great deal about the product you're getting ready to use. This is probably, for the worker that's out there, the most prevalent place they should look. They're going to be utilizing different products and different things and different items. This particular section in this tells you what is needed personal equipment-wise and what the exposure problems could be and concerns. So if, when you're teaching your guys in that situation, item number 8 and item number 9 are going to be your two most important situations to try to understand. Okay? So they don't have to go through reading all of that mass quantity of information and stuff, but when they've got that product, they can go and look at those two items. Okay? It can really help them in understanding what they're going to need for a job site. This is talking to us in proximity, looking around, the things that are there. We talk about what things are going on, okay? It's mainly observation. We sometimes, again, get like the old horse, you know, when they put the blinders on, we'll get like this and we don't look and we don't see things around us. And the guys get in a job and they get going, and that's what's happened, is they get into that thing and focus to one situation, don't pay attention to that other stuff that's there. There's a lot of things around this guy you can see here. He's got a ceiling that's hanger that's up above, he's got a hot pipe that's on there, there's a wall. He looks like he's getting ready to drill a hole, okay? Another hot pipe. There's some things there that he needs to make sure that he's aware of, okay? I mean, imagine in that situation with a hot pipe, even though you can see there, it doesn't appear that he has good gloves on. Okay? He goes to drilling that and reaches up to stabilize himself on that pipe. Potential hazard, get burned. These are the kind of things that some of the construction people get involved in. You know, they're in confined quarters or in different places, especially if you're in the industry of remodeling. Okay? If you're doing remodels and stuff like that, working on existing facilities and stuff, you run across all kinds of things. I've worked in hospitals and medical centers. I've worked in all kinds of places. And you'd be surprised the stuff that you run across. Okay? So, watching, being observant is probably your number one safety consideration, thinking, hey, what am I looking at here? Okay? High temperature. It's a reason for the sign. Pay attention to it. Red means stop. You can see this guy here, he's got it barricaded off. It's the way it should be. Stop the work you're on. Don't be up there close to it. There's a reason for it. It's not just to go up there and step over the barricade. So you can go in and look at it closer. Okay. Personal protective equipment. We'll go into a detailed breakdown of all the different personal equipment that's there and available and processes. Some are used for certain products and certain items, depending on, again, your industry and what you're involved in, is going to determine what personal protective equipment is required. Okay? So take that time as you're putting together your safety program and you're getting it lined up to really pay attention to what it is work they're doing. Okay? And set up that program to meet and design for them. Okay? Two things that's going to help you with. Okay? Give you a little bit of information that helps. You have a person that's coming to inspect your job or coming to look at your job. If you've taken that effort, okay, to do a little bit of research and set up these documents to your specific situation rather than to copy and paste something that you found on the internet, you're going to find out that that inspector is going to be more comfortable and more ready to say, okay, go ahead and let the process continue. Okay? That's going to help you in the long run. Because then you're not having to go back and start all over on certain processes. Getting the people to understand that we're doing this for your benefit. Okay? Yes, we know it's a law, but we believe it's value in the law. This is welding and cutting, torch and different items like that. We also break down that information and different things you got to look there. How to turn those on and off and utilize them properly. What things to look and check for. Hoses that have cracks or breaks or leaks in them. This gives you an indication of how it's supposed to be properly connected. Duct tape seems to be the valued tool by lots of industry people, but it is not a repair. Okay? Yes, you can get it all over. You can even get it multicolored now at Walmart, but it's not a finished repair. Okay? These are examples of confined places and spaces. Each one of these has a different requirement for them that you have to be considered with. Okay? We've heard of the incidents of these, where these will actually explode or they'll implode in a situation under certain operations, gases and different things like that. There's different measures there. If you've got people that are going to be working in a silo, take that little bit of time to go through, find out as much safety information as you can, give them a good safety program. There's a lot of stuff, like I say, on the internet that you can pull up on silos and silo safety. What they do is they It's just like if you were in sandy soil. If it just disappears below, it'll bridge for a little bit and then it'll collapse and fall. And you can take people with it. There's some industry in some places when you'll be working with that do require permits for confined space. Okay? Need to research that, make sure if you need the permit, that they have the permits available. Baptist Medical Center. You work in their facilities, some of their facilities and places, you have to have a confined permit in order to work in those places. I put in 3 MRI machines up there. Lifting. This is probably one of the items that causes the most problem for in our industry, people lifting things wrong. Bend the knee. We don't always want to do that, especially the older we get, because when you bend the knee, it seems like it's hard to get back up. You know, but it needs to be done. If they're not going to do that, then they need to have the support, you know, on them. What we were doing typically in the process is I would bring in weights here, certain kind of weights and everything else, and have each one of you lift those. Okay? But that wasn't what we needed to do this time. Yeah. These things. These are some of the basic requirements that you have in many of the construction jobs and stuff to let people know and aware of what's going on. I had to utilize these again, like I say, in medical facilities. Okay. Button's touchy for me. This is about fire extinguisher. Doesn't do you any good to have a fire extinguisher on a job that has no pressure in it. Sure, it may have been there for the last 5-6 years. And Horseplay decided one day that it was a good idea to pull that little ring and shoot a little bit of stuff in it and put the ring back. You know? That. It's not good to be playing with fire extinguishers. This is some of the data and information that's on your fire extinguishers. Understanding how you should put out the fire and also the ways that it should be done, what kind of extinguisher you should use. Probably most of you have got this information. A great source for your work area and for your unit and everything else is to get a hold of the local fire department. And they have little training programs and they'll come out and actually talk to your guys. And they do a really good job. They bring fire extinguishers and all kinds of stuff with them and they show that process. And it sort of gets the guys involved. And a lot of times it's a pretty good, you know, just an hour or two, a little safety meeting. And the fire departments in most cases are ready, willing, and able to do that. They have their own training programs and stuff to do that. And they'll bring all this information and show you. Some cases they even start a little fire and put it out and show the guys how to do that, how to work through that process. There's sort of some supplemental information we provide about ladders and various different ladders. Some of the components to it. Now in your book there you'll see the next thing, which is always what all the guys always moan about and everything else is it's review questions and test. In most cases with this program, we would require, especially if we had the 12-hour process, it would be a test It's a 40-question test to be taken afterwards in order to be certified. I currently am a nationally certified instructor, okay? And I can register people on a national registry, okay, through the NCCER that registers them to do these particular jobs, okay? And so when I give these courses and complete these courses and you go through the whole thing, then they can be certified. That way you guys can actually have a little certificate and document that says I'm certified. The course, like I say, is a little bit longer in depth and a lot more stuff that I would actually bring forward for them to do, and they would have to actually physically perform these things and for me to show or see those items that are accomplished. So that's pretty much an overview of most of the stuff that we have lined up there. I'd like to take just like a few moments now and see if we've got any questions before I get into the next phase of this. Is there any questions?
I actually do have one.
Okay.
You were talking about if an employee was impaired, whether it was a, even if it was a legal substance of prescription.
Mm-hmm.
At what point, I've got an employee that literally I won't let him come back to work yet, because I'm concerned for his safety.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that that's going to change considering the medication he's on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, at what point do you say, all right, enough's enough? Time to.
Does he have a history of accidents, incidents?
No, but, I mean, literally, you talk to him, and I don't know if it's a medication issue or whatever. I do know he is under the care of a doctor. I do know that. I don't know if it's a medication issue or what. But when am I violating his privacy versus, he can't focus. You talk to him, from one day to the next, you'll have the same conversation 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there's no recollection whatsoever. He has been a good employee. There's nothing wrong with the performance up until these issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm very concerned for his safety.
Well, do you have in your structure and everything else? Do you have an open communication? I mean, between you and the employees?
Oh yeah. I mean, and he's actually told me, I'm not sure I can work. He said, I don't feel comfortable with you. I mean, we've had a very open dialogue between he and I.
Mm-hmm.
But at what point do you say, all right, he's been on work for a month. He works in the warehouse, shop, just small town. That's the least exposure probably in our area. I mean, in our field of operation.
Yeah. And that's tough, okay, because you do have parameters legal-wise and law-wise. What you might do and everything else in that situation would be maybe to talk to your attorney to make sure you got clear understanding of the parameters that are there first. Now, I mean, there is situations where you can establish rules to a job, but the way those have to be established is they have to be presented as a policy change to the company, and they have to be provided at least 2 weeks in advance, notification to all of them. There has to be a signed document of acknowledgement of those policy changes within the company before you have legal standing to go any further than that. And that's what they're going to probably tell you in that situation. Now, in Oklahoma, they have there's a law out there that allows you to send the person on the way, and you don't have to have a reason. You don't have to justify it. Okay. That's where the emotion gets involved in it sometimes, and it can be hard. But looking at it as concern for the other people, and apparently what you're saying is he is concerned that he's not going to be safe as well. Okay. So maybe he needs to seek another industry. a different type of work. Those are the kind of things that I would look at. As far as putting him out to a situation, I wouldn't allow him the old adage of give him enough rope to hang himself.
Sure.
Okay, because then you could end up getting somebody else hurt. And if you've already identified that and then made it aware, that puts you in potentially in a problem too. I'm not sure I gave you a complete answer,
No, I
but
understand. I suspected it was a question, a legal question.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's something in
yeah.
regulations that.
Well, if a person continues to practice unsafely, but that's not what you're identifying. You know, do unsafe practices, yes, you have measures that you can take, okay? You know, because you can establish it.
You know, like DOT regs, I mean, there's certifications, period, they can,
Yeah.
if they've got
Right.
certifications, period, they can't drive.
Yeah.
Isn't it right, it's not a.
Yeah.
I've got a question on that too, because a lot of cold medicines really mess some people up. You know, everybody reacts to them differently. But, I mean, when you were saying, do you have a policy to say no matter what kind of medications you're on, you need to report to us? Or is it just something that you're observing? You know,
Yeah.
when you were talking about if they're on just over-the-counter stuff.
Well, most of the places that I've worked through the last few years, the handbook that you have has an identification in that handbook that there is limits on medications that can be utilized on a job site. Okay, and if those at any point in time hinder their ability to operate equipment or to do their job, okay, then they will not be allowed to work that day. Yeah, but I don't think anybody has any problem with that. Some people may have a problem with, the person might have a problem with the fact, well, I need to work today. You know, but again, in that situation, you get involved legal-wise, and I'd look at maybe talking to an attorney to make sure you got all the pressures together, make sure I have a handbook in the company. That's the biggest thing, you know, in management, through business management, you want to make sure that you have a handbook, and that handbook is addressed with all the information in it, and the person signs the acceptance and approval of that handbook and acknowledges that they have it. Then that sets the measures of what you can hold them responsible for.
I know a truck driver, he wasn't working for me, but I know a truck driver that got a DUI for cold medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work in a place that, again, what he's saying with the handbook, you know, you have that information and they sign off on it. I used to work somewhere where if you were on any kind of medication, you had to report it, and if you couldn't, let's say if you were a machine operator, and you just couldn't do that day, they would typically try to repurpose or reassign you. But I worked in an environment where we had labor agreements, so we had unions, and so a lot of that legal stuff was already negotiated and hashed out early on. But I remember having an employee who he was almost a 40-year veteran at the job he did, and we had drug testing and everything. And as I know it, he never came up with anything positive, but I used to hear regularly. I couldn't observe it. I couldn't see him, but he was drunk every day. He was an alcoholic, and he would come in. He could function. I would never smell anything. I could never observe him being drunk. But people who knew him and who they said that he was functional.
Now, within the standards of situation of safety, when it becomes a safety issue, and that's why establishing record. And the way you do that is to establish, first of all, a safety policy that you want everybody to follow, and then you have to go by that policy. It's not just a matter of writing this information down and record it and get it off and do like they do with the owner's manual and just take it and toss it off to the side and say, there, I got it done. You know, and when the OSHA guy shows up, you go in the back room and dust it off the roof and say, yeah, we got a safety program. And first thing he does, he turns over and looks and he says, well, it was signed 12 years ago.
That doesn't count.
We have to be safety prone and safety observant in our company and our company operations as well, and be ready for that as it changes.
On safety meetings, on documenting safety, is there a requirement on the amount of safety meetings per week or?
No, there isn't a requirement in that situation. What?
Depending on, okay, you as a sub, okay, the GC on whatever job that you're working on, he can require you to hold a certain number of safety meetings, you know, per week. I mean, you could say you have to hold, you know, 1 a week or 2 a week. I mean, it can be a requirement from whomever the prime contractor is, you know, on whatever job that you're, you know, that you're working on. It can be a requirement, you know, as part of his, your contract with him.
For the owner,
So-
and I've worked for owners that did 1 week, and I've worked for owners that did every day, 2
And
months.
it's not unheard of for, especially on ODOT projects. I mean, whoever the prime contractor is, for him to require that, you know, that the subs hold safety meetings, you know, for whatever job that they're doing.
If it's a federal project, it's once a week.
And we do go out and interview people, so we ask employees how often they have meetings.
The important situation to that for your company wise and everything else is make sure you get it recorded and you get all their signatures, okay, that they did attend the meeting, okay, for you on that side of it. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be an elaborate situation where it has to be in a classroom with the overhead and all that kind of stuff. It can be just simply a situation of bringing up those safety measures, and it can be what they call a tailgate meeting or a toolbox meeting where everybody meets together just for a few minutes. Now, my situation and everything else, what I've done is, especially when we go to different phases of the job, different phases and different things that are going on, stop for just a moment and remind the guys of, okay, now we're doing this and this, we need to consider this. You know, again, that's being safety observant ahead of time. You know, that prevention more than response is so important. And sometimes it's just a matter of reminding them of certain things, you know, when you get involved in it. Any other questions? Let's take another break for, okay?
I just overheard a conversation on a little break earlier that I guess people actually fabricate reasons for accidents. So I guess I'm pretty naive, but it's like, really?
I've
Do
worked.
that at Walmart.
Yeah.
I've worked with some people that's happened. I worked in a job one time and we took a break for a few minutes, me and another guy, and we were been working for a couple of months together, and he stretched back there in the truck for a moment and he says, well, he says, it's getting towards fall, it's time to get workman's comp claim in so I can get through the winter. Now, you have people who play the system, but you can't.
Previously, years ago, one of the biggest claims they had was a back injury from an administrative person, the controller at the time. He said he got a 8 number. And it turned out he had done it
Improperly.
years before. No, he had done it years before in football. And actually had someone testifying that would testify against him, and that's still.
Yeah, there's potential of all kinds of things that could occur. Yeah. But again, in that situation is making sure you have a well-defined safety program, okay? And you've made sure that they acknowledge that program. A lot of times can save you any of those hassles and hindrances later on. Other questions? Let's take a break. I'll go into the last phase here. couple other items that you guys have had in front of you is Victoria downloaded this and put this together for you. This is an example of a safety manual. Okay, it gives you sort of an indication of documents and stuff that you might want to put in the safety manual for your program. You know, and you need to modify it for your particular industry and particular product that you're actually working with. Can really help you and address some of those situations. If you're working through, I don't know for sure if they have the resource yet, but I know CompuServe used to also have programs where they have videos available and stuff like that under certain measures that can be utilized for safety programs. They're actually an insurer for state and the state projects and stuff like that. So those can possibly be available to you. Most of the safety industry items are readily available to you through various measures. Truly, Francis Tuttle has safety opportunities that you can get involved in. This course is on basic safety, general construction safety, but we also provide heavy equipment operation. There's 28 courses totally that I work through and can teach, from project management, various different things like that. Teach concrete finishing, asphalt repairs and maintenance, and actually how to run asphalt paving machines. Large variety of different things that are available, tools there, okay, to help the process and help you in developing a better process for your system. Each and every item that we teach, we don't try to teach to necessarily the individual piece of equipment, but if it's something you want me to be involved in or to help you with, if you can let me know the equipment, I will do the research and try to work that process through and help you with it in any situation I can. The front items that are in this particular book here, okay, that was put together, again, this is information that can help you. It gives you some of the indications of what certain things means. Got sort of a breakdown of some of the industry practices and measures here. What's necessarily a sample, what might be a toxic item, what exposure values are, various different things there. Again, it's a source that can help you in developing your program. I think it's something to be valuable to you. I know that I sort of lightly touched on the situation of chemicals, but chemicals is part of our life today, and you could be really surprised on certain situations of chemicals. I've utilized a lot of different chemicals through my time, and it wasn't until later in life I found I have an allergy to certain chemicals, okay, that happens and stuff. It wasn't something I was aware of it right off, so people can change, things can change in it, so just making sure that you understand that. You know, a common product that I have a problem with is Murphy soap. That Murphy soap makes my skin my hands swell up and all kinds of stuff if I get in contact with it. So I make sure I have gloves on when I use it. but it can happen to a lot of different things like that, so it's something you take in consideration. There's other measures you need to consider safety-wise, depending on, again, the age of your workforce. It can make a difference on what kind of safety items you need to consider, okay? Because in some cases, depending on the age of that person, there's things that change. There's some of them that have certain health issues, and we have to try to provide as well as we can to situations where there's disabilities and stuff like that happen. We want to try to get people in the industry to work. So sometimes we have to make provisions for them, and you can do that. And just making the provision, there's still safety guidelines, okay, that need to be followed in that to try to help that process, so if you do that research. And one of the last and final items that I want to bring up in this situation to talk about a little bit is the 21st century, okay? The 21st century has caused a lot of things to change. One of the things you need to be really prone to and understanding in a safety program and development of a safety program is almost everybody has one of these, okay? And they have the capability to take video, okay? And that video a lot of times ends up on YouTube and all kinds of different places, okay? And you have to be concerned with that. And because there's some foolishness that happens with certain things out there that are unsafe processes. And some people challenge things just to do it that way, okay? And thinking it's not, not gonna get anybody hurt, but it could happen. And so when you're developing the program and developing the safety program, it's something you need to think about. What am I looking at media-wise? Because we are changing, okay? We're changing in those situations. A lot of places require that there be no media capability on the job site. Especially some of your government agencies and everything else, you're not allowed to have that information. Where I work out at Xerox, you're not allowed to have any electronic device with you. Okay, so you have to put it away. There's two safety issues to that. First of all, safety for the person, but the other situation, it's a safety for the company. Okay, because people can do some foolish things sometimes. Now it's your job to address those situations and those foolishness and everything else, but hopefully it won't ever show up on YouTube, okay, and become a viral video somewhere in that situation, because media is all around us, okay? So thinking about that when you're developing your safety program can really make a difference in some of the things you might consider, okay? We've all observed some situations, processes, but today it's more prone to being observed in a lot of places. Okay. Also, they don't have to be right there on the job site nowadays to take a video of a situation, especially some of the construction you're doing outside. The media's watching, and the people are watching, and everybody's got stuff that's out there. Getting your guys to understand that there is eyes watching upon them, you can use that, okay? Because then, hey, if you don't have your safety vest on, I'm gonna see it. It's like another set of eyes that you have there available, because we want to make sure that they get those things done. The last thing that we want to do is to have to terminate somebody's employment because of safety situations, or we want to attend their funeral. Okay? And so whatever measures we can do at this particular time to help them in that situation can make a difference. Whether we all want to agree with it or not, somewhere down along the lines, we all got to this position because somebody else was looking out for us. And now it's our job to look out for them. And I think when you put your program together, you look at it in that way rather than it being a process, well, I've got to get it done. It does have more value to you, and it has more value to them. Once we get everybody to accept that value, you'll find out that they'll be more willing to comply with it. When I first got involved with a community around here that was having some real problems, they had some real major things going on. We started working with the program and doing some changes, and now they begin to see some real changes. Not only the supervision of it is having less problems with it, the guys are actually taking care of the stuff themselves. They're looking more towards helping one another because they see value in it. Doesn't do any good to do all of this paperwork and everything else if there's no value in it. If all they do is set it in the corner or throw it in the way. Take value to it. Okay? This course didn't cost you anything today. Okay? And it was a process of providing you with information and getting out information to you to help you in that situation. I am available to help you, and because my concern is to try to help the people. Hopefully that's your concern. Okay? But we do still have to meet compliance, don't we? And we have to meet those compliance measures. It's easier to take it as a spoonful of sugar than a spoonful of salt. Okay? And so you can take it that way and make it something of value to you. Okay? you have things within your industry and things that you've been involved in that you're really proud of, things that you've gotten accomplished and things you've gotten done. Make the safety program something you're proud of, something that everybody else is proud of. You'll find out in the long run, it's going to save you, it's going to save your industry, it's going to get you more work, it's going to get you more jobs, it's going to get you a reputation, but, you know, it's better than some of the reputations you might get if you don't. Is there anything else that you guys need help with?
Could you, I'm just curious, what kind of topics would you cover in those tailgate or toolbox safety briefings that would really have value to your employees that
Well,
could do it in such a short amount of time?
well, it needs to be definitely address the particular job you're on, okay? I mean, it's not going to do you much good to come out and talk to the guys about the potential problems of herbicide spray when you're finishing concrete, okay? So making it topic specific to whatever you're doing. Now, that way it doesn't have to be long and elaborate. It can be just short topics. And I used to do that, set up for the jobs I had going on, just little files of certain type of jobs that we're doing and information that I get when the information come in and stuff about something that worked in that area, set those files up, and then when I went to visit the job, I could bring out that information and say, you know, we'll talk about this and this. And it doesn't have to be a long, detailed one, but doesn't, you know, it's trying to make sure whatever's going on with the job. So it's going to require us to understand the job they're doing, okay, and understand what it is that they're actually getting accomplished, and see what we can do to help them.
The AGC actually provides safety toolbox meeting notes.
Yeah.
But it also depends on what you're working on. Like you just said, if you're working on concrete, then you want to talk about properties of concrete and cures and finishing and you know, things like that.
Well, and MSDS concerns. If you're using it, you know, it's important. Those are things that I would make sure, safety potentials, potential problems, things to look at there. You know, sort of a general safety thing is looking at, you know, fatigue of the person, depending on the temperatures that you're working in, the environment you're working in. Those can all make a difference too that you're looking for. Somebody stands up and they begin to wooze a little bit and everything else, you've got a concern there, you know, that you need to address. Could be that they're getting overheated, could be a number of different things. But it's reminding them to be observant.
Are you going to show that video?
Huh?
Are you going to show that video?
This one is what you might see on a YouTube one day. If it'll play for me. How do I enlarge it here now?
Okay, my friend's got to be on the recording for the YouTube video. All right, water skiing, mud hole water skiing, South Carolina.
Very unsafe practice, okay, safety measures. I think that guy that was talking there is actually the owner of that company. Yeah. So these are the kind of things that can happen when you get a bunch of people together. Things happen on the job site. Trying to get the people to understand that this is not proper behavior is the important issue. Okay? It really is. That video always catches attention. I even had people stopping in the hall out there watching it. It was coming through. But that's what I'm telling you. When you're developing these programs, especially today in the 21st century, you understand that the video is potentially available. People get really upset when you tell them to turn their video equipment off. Okay, I had a math class I taught a while back and everything else, and I told them to turn them off because I didn't want them using for a calculator. Oh, you thought I would? Told them to take their arm off. You know, told them we was going to do it on the board and we was going to do it the long way. But that's what it's about, is thinking about this ahead of time. Okay, getting ready for those potential hazards and incidents that could occur. Now, I think some of you are trying to take that test information, and the information for that test and all the answers is in that paperwork that's provided there. I didn't go through that all item by item. This time I don't have enough time in this short class to do that. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to see what could be available and to help you in that situation, help that process. And if you decide that you need to have a program put together like this for NCCR, let me know, and we can see if we can get you a class lined up for your organization, and then we can actually certify the people. And there's a multitude. There's that one form there. I've got heavy equipment and a lot of different things that we can teach, highway construction and different things like that. So if we have no other questions, guess we'll call this closed. You got out here a little bit early.
That doesn't happen very often.
Mm-hmm. Yep.